under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our first order of business would be to accept the minutes of December 7th. However, our recording secretary's father passed away this past week, so she wasn't able to get to them. She told me she'd do them. She emailed me, so I totally forgot about it, and I'll get them done today. I said, you know, there's some things that are priorities, and, you know, take care of your mom, and you know, you can do both of them after that. So the next order of business is something Cheryl reminded me of, which is and this is to be a modification. Cheryl, you want to just, you know, ask to amend the minutes, or want me just to do it summarily?
The minutes?
The agenda, I'm sorry.
Guidelines.
So that we can do the guidelines.
I sent this out, it's dated 11/7, so I think everybody had ample time to look it over. I incorporated the suggestions and feedback from the committee, so I would like to move that we accept as amended on 11/7/17.
Okay. Let me pull those up. Here they are. There was one change I wanted to request. Hi, Michelle. Hi. There was one change I wanted to request, which is under the officers, and instead of 30 days, I wanted to ask for 60 days, just because there may be other people who are in the same situation as I am, where I may not be back within 30 days of the election, and I know that will not be the case. So if anybody would mind, if that's okay. Yeah, Cheryl.
I think it's fine as stands. I hope that everybody's here for the election.
The election, I will not be here for the election. I will be gone.
Okay.
As I have been every year.
The whole purpose of having guidelines is that it's a process to facilitate the functioning of the committee, and not necessarily to meet the needs of individuals. I mean, you may not even be here next year. I think you're up for re-election.
I suspect I will be. I will be running, and I think I'll win.
Well, that's your editorial comment that I don't...
It is, and I respect you doing yours as well. The thing is that there may be other people who are also snowbirds during the election season who wouldn't be back in time, and we don't have urgent business in the spring, so I'd suggest that we give ourselves a little bit more time than 30 days.
Well, I would suggest if they are snowbirds and they can't be here and meet the guidelines of the committee and the timelines, that perhaps this is not the committee for them to be on.
Of course, I know you feel that way, Cheryl. That's okay.
Move the adoption of the amendment.
Wait a minute, I want to say something.
Okay, yes.
How are you liking the guidelines now?
For me? Okay.
Well, I had to.
Well, this is the purpose of guidelines, so that
we have a motion on the floor. If I could interrupt Cheryl. Cheryl, excuse me. We have a motion on the floor right now to move the amendment of the guidelines to 60 days. Can I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Do you have something new?
No, just that I'm going to vote against this because I think it's fine as is, and that we need to get doing the business and get the organization done, as we all discussed in our multiple readings and revisions of this document.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? Okay, so the motion carries by 6-2, and now can we have a motion to accept the guidelines? Yeah, Cheryl.
I'd like to propose another amendment, considering, and my condolences go out to our recording secretary. However, one of the things that we had discussed was having a backup, someone on the committee who, if our recording secretary was indisposed for whatever reason, would be able to, in fact, fill in. Of course, it's not what we want to do, but, you know, in situations just like this, it would have been really appropriate to have someone on the committee go over that video and write the minutes, because I do believe there are guidelines that those minutes need to be on file within 5 business days of the meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we are now not in compliance with that. So I think having someone on the committee be a backup and someone who wants to volunteer is certainly appropriate for situations such as this, which hopefully don't happen very often, but would be great to have that so we could be in compliance with the timelines.
Okay, I'm not sure that that has anything to do with accepting these guidelines right now. It could be an implementation of them.
Well, it's an amendment because it's not in here, just like you just offered an amendment to change 30
In what way,
days
I'm
to
sorry,
60.
in what way is it an amendment?
That we would add officers to have a secretary, a backup secretary, a member of the committee, an elected member of the committee, because it says the recording secretary is the person that's hired by the district.
I think it's covered in here. If you look at where it says officers will be chair, vice chair, secretary, and then further it says officer responsibilities, and if you skip down, it says secretary will take minutes when the recording secretary is absent from a meeting.
Right.
So I think we're covered.
So so it doesn't say anywhere here who the recording secretary would be.
That's hired by the district, but you're talking about a secretary, and we do not have a secretary as an officer right now, but that would be an implementation of these guidelines should we adopt them.
Well, then I would change my amendment to, which we had in the original, was that the district would hire a recording secretary, because this is not clear that that is what the wishes of this committee were. And I think pretty much everybody was in accordance, in agreement, that we felt we all wanted to be able to participate in the meeting so that we would ask the district to hire someone that would be outside of the meeting, wouldn't have to participate. So I would like to move to amend to add that the committee will seek to
Where is
hire-
it that you want to add this? Just so that I can see.
We had it in there.
Yeah, so it's not an officer, it could
It's all
be,
in there.
excuse me?
It says it right in there. Please scroll back, please scroll back up.
I'm sorry, I don't want to go too fast and make your.
Secretary
Oh, it
will
is.
take
Yep, sorry.
meeting minutes when the recording secretary is absent from a meeting.
Okay.
She's suggesting it doesn't make clear that we will ask the district to hire.
No, it says
recording
that
secretary.
the committee will request that the district hire a paid recording secretary who will
Oh,
not
it
be a
is there.
member of the or participant in the meeting.
Thank you.
So I think it's all there.
It's all there.
Very good, thank you.
Okay,
Sorry, I
so
missed
can we
that.
have a motion to adopt these as they now stand? Please?
I move to adopt the
We already have a
guidelines.
motion to adopt, it's right here. Do you want to second that,
Didn't see
Cheryl?
that, sure.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, and abstaining? Anybody? So what we have is we have a vote of 7-1 with Mr. Doggett opposed. And these are adopted. So next on our agenda is our Budget Committee development. And for that, we have a sheet, pull out, hang on, I want to pull out this other thing too. Sorry. This is my computer, so I'm trying to get it to the right thing. Here we are. Okay. This is the form, which is also the one which has been distributed. It's where we are at the present moment. If you see in column D, it's got the proposed budget from the superintendent, the changes that the school board has put through, and then in column M, it's got the proposed budget that the budget committee's been building. So at this point, where we're at is we are on the teaching positions. And the original budget called for a reduction of 8.5, and the school board has forwarded a reduction of 6 instead. And that would, if that net effect would add $206,960 to the budget. Can I have a motion to do that? to add the 206,960? And then
I'll
we,
move.
okay, and a second, please?
Second.
Second from Tammy? Okay, so discussion.
What's FTE?
Full-time equivalent,
Full-time equivalent.
yeah. Because they're talking about 2.5 here. Michelle, I wanted to invite you to come up, please. Love to have you here. One of the things that has come forward today that just came out was that it's kind of a little bit of a status report on the student assistance counselor. And it appears that the funding exactly the way it is not going to happen, but we may be able to get funding for kind of a half-time. And I communicated with Mr. Ambrose, and Michelle can certainly amplify this, but if we have the 2.5 teaching positions restored, 2 will be one at each elementary school, and the half would be to work on the student assistant counselor, which is a teaching position. So, just so you know what's going on with that. Do you want to say anything further about that, Michelle?
I don't think so. I do want to apologize. I was here earlier and spent 10 minutes trying to find parking.
I saw you out there parked.
I tried to send you a message, Danny, and I'm like, I hope she knows I'm here.
I was told you were here. We kind of waited a little bit to start, and then we said, okay, we're just going to have to go ahead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Cheryl.
So the 2 that are being proposed would be elementary school.
That's what his intention is, yes.
We're adding 2 to the elementary.
No, not adding, retaining 2. Instead of reducing by 8.5 teachers, which would include 2 from one from each elementary school, he would retain the 2 from the elementary
I
schools.
thought Mr. Ambrose said that those cuts were being proposed from the middle and high school. No?
The 6.
So,
The
Yes.
8.5, I thought originally he said you were anticipating going to come from the middle and high.
if I
Please.
may, I think when asked directly about where the positions would come from, it hasn't been etched in stone at this point in time, but the 2.5 that would be reinstated would be focused at the elementary level. So the goal is to have the reductions that are planned happen through attrition and retirements and not filling positions, and then there may be some jockeying of positions. But all in all, in putting these 2.5 back, the focus first and foremost would be on reinstating staffing at the elementary level
And where
SAC.
would,
and the SAC.
What is that?
The student assistance counselor.
Right.
where, I'm looking at the enrollments, 10/1/2017. Is there an idea of where there's a need for those 2 teachers?
This is a work in progress. He has not spelled it out specifically at this point, Cheryl. We don't have any more information than that.
Well, it makes it hard to make a decision when we don't have the information. We're being asked to add things, and looks to me like the class sizes are quite low in the elementary schools. The highest number in a class is 18, and our school district policy is maximum of 25. So we're well under that.
If I might
Yes,
respond
please.
to that. I would encourage folks to keep in mind that this budget is for a time frame that's well into the future. Those enrollment numbers are very, very much draft. There will be a lot of changes, and I don't know exactly how the numbers are going to play out by the time we actually start the next fiscal year. So those numbers, I think, when they were shared with the caveat that they're draft.
The 10-1 enrollments?
If you're talking about the next year's projections.
Oh, no, I was talking about the current.
Right, but the current isn't, I mean, it's not a stagnant number in terms of how that's going to relate to next year's numbers, because people can move in, move out.
Well, the history is our enrollment's been going down, down, down. So is there something that maybe you've looked at birth records that making you think it might go up, or new houses being built, or?
There's something as the superintendent's professional opinion that he would like to reinstate the 2.5 positions, 2 being at the elementary level for teaching positions. That's what he feels comfortable with at this point. The board was comfortable in reinstating those as well, and that's all that I can share at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to repeat my strenuous objection that we could easily save $95,000 by eliminating the math coordinator position, and that would cover at least one of these teaching positions.
Any other? Yes, sir. Yep.
This is obviously the big dollar item that's on here tonight. On a general note, which really fits into this, is that the superintendent came in with a budget of $34,934.
34 million.
34 million. Yeah, 30. Yeah. Don't leave off the million. And he said that was fine. He could operate with that budget, and it was acceptable, workable, blah, 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 blah. And now, the school board, they do what they do, and now we're sitting here adding to it. The budget that he brought in would have given the taxpayers a break. Finally, a zero-based budget, flat budget, at least for 1 year. And I sit here and I just see the budget committee add money. And when we add money, let's say what it really is. We're increasing people's taxes. That's what this is. This will be a tax increase that some of these members want us to do, a tax increase over what the superintendent proposed himself. I'm at a loss as to why and why this position is being taken. Also, he said that these 8 positions, whatever it was, were maybes. You had to look at attrition, people leaving, retirements and whatnot. It was I got the impression it was sort of like a goal, but maybe it would happen, maybe it wouldn't. And Jim's right. There's a lot of places where you could make up half of this like that for some reason refuses to get looked at. And I don't understand that quite either. So I think I just can't in good conscience vote to raise the taxpayers' tax bills. And that's really what it is when you hear the word resources. That means money, which means taxes. And last week we're sitting here looking at increasing the tax bill, the tax burden on the taxpayers, above what the superintendent asked for. We get criticized for, I'll take that out. And the other part that bothers me about this is we seem to be playing to the fiddle of the school board instead of ourselves. We're the ones that set the budget, not the school board. And we spend all this time looking at what they did. It's our budget. It's not their budget. They're going to have to approve our budget or not approve it, not vice versa here. And that really disappoints me. That's not our the statutory function is for the budget committee to set the budget figure. And I'm all for a consensus and trying to get people together, but consensus, I did this for 30 years. Consensus in negotiations means a give and take, a back and forth, and maybe a compromise. So far, I haven't seen any compromises. We're being asked, well, approve what they want, approve what the school board wants. No. So I say we don't support this, that not be approved by the budget committee. And again, that's it. Just don't approve it. We don't put it in our approved column.
Yeah.
I do have a comment, but I'd like to yield to the business administrator. She also has her.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice. I just saw your hand up.
She has some feedback there.
A question was raised as to why the superintendent's number would be different from the board's number. I just want to, again, remind folks that the superintendent was given a charge by the board to come in with a specific budget at a specific level. And he did that. He accomplished that. And if And he said that he would figure out a way to make it work if that were, the charge. But looking at the number of position reductions, he was certainly more comfortable with reinstating the 2.5 positions and explained that as such to the board. And the board heard that message and reinstated those positions, still leaving a pretty significant change to the bottom line budget. But I just want to clarify that having the superintendent followed the board's charge, and that's why that number is the number that it is. It was presented. It's not as though the board did something different than the superintendent was recommending, because they asked for feedback in terms of the critical areas and what he would consider reinstating, given the opportunity to do that. So I hope that answers the question on why the numbers are different.
Yep. Tammy.
I just wanted to refer back to Mrs. Gannon's comment about class sizes. The school board policy IIB is a little different than what the numbers that she had mentioned, so I just want to clarify. The goal for classes at the primary level, grades K, will not be more than 18 students, according to the board policy. Grades 1 through 3 will not be more than 20 students. And it's in grades 4 through 8, the goal rate rises to 25 students on the high school level as well. So we're talking about elementary, so we're looking more at 18 to 20 would be the school board policy, not 25 students per class.
We've got 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, 17. There are only 2 classes in Bakey and 2 in Memorial that have 18. That's second grade. They will be moving up to third grade next year. Our numbers in Memorial are, so I have last year's October 2017, 283. 2016 was 283. 2017 was down by 15. Bakey, the numbers in 2016 were about the same, 355, and we're 354. Bakey numbers, again, 16, 18 in the kindergarten, but first grade 14, 15, so we're well under the 18 there. Grade 1, 15, under the 18 there. Grade 2, 16 and 17. Grade 3, 18, 19. Those are going up to grade 4. Grade 4 going to grade 5, we've got 18, 19, and 120. Again, with the trend of the enrollments going down, unless there's something that we see coming up, as I suggested, like we see birth rates in the towns have gone up, or houses are being built so families could move in. I'm thinking that the trend's going to continue to go down, and high school and middle school projections are I guess significantly down, which is what the superintendent told us, was that was where most of he was expecting the reductions in staff would come. So, I mean, no, you never know who's going to move in. I mean, people could move in and could have high school students too. So we are going on projections, but I think with the history, I think we're still fairly safe with that reduction of the 6.5.
I'd like to just comment on your statements about the enrollments. I'd like to point out, for instance, in kindergarten at Bakey, with 15, 14, 16, and 15, if you were to take one of those classes of 15 and put 5 of those children in each one of the other classes, you would have class sizes of 20 to 21, which is above the parameters that the school board policy outlines. That works for every one of those grades except for Memorial grade 4, where I think it goes up to 25, according to school board policy. And in grade 4, it would be possible to take those 14 kids that are in each of 3 classes and redistribute them into a class of 21 each, 2 classes of 21. But that is really the only one which could be done of all of these and be in compliance with school board policy. So that would be possibly one teacher from Memorial.
No,
Yes.
Just please remember that that's school board policy. State standards are much higher. State standards allow for 25 in any of those classrooms, and I believe it bumps up to 30 when you hit 5th grade. So, I mean, we're well under state
and the
standards.
contract.
Yeah, so.
You know, 21 children in a classroom is not unreasonable. But that's, you know, school board decision.
Yes. Yes, Charlie.
Michelle, Michelle was absolutely accurate that he filled a charge given by the school board. But what I heard was that this is an impossible situation. I didn't hear any of that. This won't work. I can't do this. He seemed very upbeat, very positive that he was going to be able to make this work. And we never heard until what I call the wish list came out, that this was some kind of a critical need. And if it was, then the superintendent, I assume, would have found his $200,000 somewhere else in the budget to keep the teaching positions there, and he didn't do that. I agree that we're below state requirements. We're definitely below the contract requirements, which we keep hearing about, the contractual agreements that we've made. So it should not be approved by the budget committee.
I'd like to just say that Mr. Ambrose, from the very first presentation on November 1st, did say that he preferred having 6. He did the 8.5, but that he was really more comfortable with 6. And so I just wanted to say that wasn't something that kind of came up later. I think I have to disagree with you, Charlton. Yes, okay. Cheryl.
I'd just like to point out to an elementary school that elementary school teachers are certified to teach in any grade within the elementary school. So if the 2nd grade only has 2 teachers, and the 3rd grade has 3, the 3rd grade's going up to 4, and they only have 2. A teacher from 3rd grade could be moved to 4th grade to accommodate the higher class sizes in the grade above that. So as these students move up, those elementary school teachers can be reassigned to another grade. Unlike high school, where you are certified in one subject, you can't say to an English teacher, we need you in the science department. Same thing with middle. But in elementary, they are typically certified for at least 1 through 5. I'm not sure if it's K through 5. So I think, again, there's still room for adjustment if we have those teachers there, and we need to switch them to another grade to accommodate the higher enrollments in those grade levels.
I was just going to say it's actually 1 through 8 versus 1 through 5.
Elementary?
Is the elementary certification.
The elementary school teachers can't teach middle school. No.
Not in every school district. Not every school district has middle school. Because, no, the town just north of us, their teachers are all elementary certified.
I'm not sure that it matters a lot, whether it's middle school or not. Yes, Sandy.
So you're saying, I don't understand exactly what you're saying when it comes to, he suggested 8.5, he said that he would prefer 6, the school board reinstated 2.5. You're discussing enrollment, which we know is declining. The 2.5, he has now indicated he would like to keep 1 at Bakey and 1 at Memorial. Are you proposing that we do not give one of those teachers to Bakey or Memorial, or both of them, and keep it at 8.5, or make it 8, or what number is it? I need some clarification.
I think the 6.5, so not reinstating the 2.5, if those 2.5 were targeted towards Memorial and Beatty.
The 6 or the 6.5, because the school board
The number
reinstated 6.
Well, just to back up, the motion on the table is to reinstate the 2.5 to have 206,000 added on to the budget that by statute, the school board sent to us. I mean, that's part of the statute, is that they send their recommendations to us. That's why we have it in front of us. It isn't-
Recommendation.
Recommendations, it isn't a budget, no.
So we're talking about the 2.5.
Yeah.
And what I heard tonight was the superintendent wants to put 2 of those 2.5 positions, 1 at each elementary. That, I didn't hear that before. So when I looked at these enrollment numbers, I thought the 2.5 were going to go to the middle and high, because that's where we were looking to cut 8. And maybe we can't cut 8 from the middle and high.
He wasn't ever suggesting, I don't think, cutting 8.5 from the middle and high school. He just said, if we have as many as 8.5, this is what he's told me. If he has, and tell me if I'm right, if we have as many as 8.5 reduction, it will mean 1 from each of the elementary schools. There is no way that he can do 8.5 and not take 1 from each of the elementary schools. That's what he's told me. And I think that's what he's told everybody, openly. Would you, yeah.
I would agree.
Okay, and I asked him for an email today to affirm that, so that I would be sure that that was what he was saying, so that I could share it with you folks. Yeah.
What I heard from the last school board meeting, through the deliberations and the questions that Mr. Ambrose and Michelle answered, was that the priority here was to build in some buffer for the student assistant counselor. Now, we all know that all the communities are suffering, from substance abuse and the opioid crisis, and kids have a lot of stressors at home. I would just hate to see us act in haste, knowing that that was stated as a priority. And, tonight we got information that says, technically, Mr. Ambrose feels that the half FTE could cover what he might need for that, should the grant not come in. I just think you need to realize that, this problem has been ongoing for a long time. This is a strong statement by our administration that they're willing to do something about it, that they're making it a priority. And I don't think anybody can ignore the fact that it needs to be addressed. Nobody is immune from this, no matter what family you come from, what side of the tracks you're on. It's something that we need to prioritize for our students and for our families and our communities, and that's all I want to say.
I have up on the screen, if anybody wants to see it, Mr. Ambrose's email that he sent, and I'll read it. It says, "Hi, we can, especially if you notice the part about the match, we could still get some funding." This is referring to my question about, I said, "My understanding is that you can, per what you said in the school board meeting, find the funds in the proposed budget with a 6, not 8.5 teaching staff reduction for this position. Please affirm, thank you." And he says, "We can, especially if you notice the part about the match." Let me just back up. The match is that the person looking for the grant for the student assistance counselor has said that right now we're spending about 25% in partial matching funds. She wants to look into a possible 50% match instead. And so he's saying that half position would help with that. So he's saying it puts a little more emphasis on adding 2.5 positions back in the budget. Just in case anyone asks, here's the layout. If they are added back in, we will keep the 2 elementary positions, and the 0.5 will go to the SAC, who's the student assistance counselor. So I just wanted to share that with you because I got that tonight. Yes, Jim.
You said that we're presently paying 25%, so it's a 75-25 split. If we go to paying half, that would only require a 1 1/4 person be added back into the budget.
And it's an if. We might pay 100%.
I think I made persuasive arguments. I'm sorry, there is a position in the school district that has cost us almost $10 million over the past decade. Sorry, $1 million over the past decade, over the past 10 years. That I would rather see us eliminate that position and retain an elementary teacher. But as I look at the town budget and the school district budget, I mean, the town, my lecture from last year, the town nickels and dimes, I mean, we took $45 away from somebody's postage. And we're sitting here without a quorum putting in $206,000. I mean, we're adding back into here roughly half the fire department budget for the town of Newton. For 2.5 people. Wow.
Okay. Does anybody have anything further? Okay, right now we have a motion on the floor, and we can, let's see how this goes. We have a motion on the floor to add in 2.5 teachers for a net reduction of 6, and the amount that would be added in for that is $206,960. All in favor, please say aye. And opposed? The motion fails. The motion fails for the videographer and for her minutes by a vote of 3 to 5, with Sandy, Tammy, and Annie voting in favor, and the rest voting opposed. Okay, so may I have another motion? Yes.
Madam Chair, I would move that we add to the budget $111,960. That represents 1.5 people minus the math coordinator's 95.
Okay, can we have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Tammy. Discussion. Yes.
That's a number I can live with. I mean, I'm not terribly thrilled with it. I hate continually adding more money to it. But that shows good faith on our part to the taxpayers that we have looked at something, we've seen it has not worked. We're eliminating it. Now, numbers could come in the fall, and suddenly there's no need for that extra position, at which point it's the school board who will have the final say on how any reductions in staff will be handled. But I would honestly be able to look at people and say, yes, I fought for that thing and I'm not the only person. There are people in the public that have seen this position over the years and have questioned, and that's why I've brought it forward. That gives me a selling point.
Okay. Mary?
It's my understanding that we don't have any jurisdiction or say over which positions are kept or eliminated.
Right.
And I understand your frustration with this particular post. I voted against the last motion because I suspected you were going to come back with a compromise. And that's something that I can live with.
Yeah.
Knowing that Mr. Ambrose stated he needed just a half an FTE to cover that student assistance program, which I think is very important.
Oh, it is.
So I will support you in this compromise, meeting in the middle.
Yes.
So Jim, just to make sure we all understand what you just did, you just gave up your query about the math coordinator at $90,000, so that's staying, and you're adding another, let me finish, I'm making a statement, and you're adding another 100,000. So in essence, you're keeping it right where it is. That's my opinion.
No.
Yeah, 111,000 and 90,000 for the math coordinator gives you.
No, I'm sorry, he said 111,960 instead of 206,960.
Right, 111,000.
Okay.
No reduction in the math coordinator, which you want to have happen. So you're giving that up and adding 100,000 to the budget. The proposal.
Quite honestly, it sends a direction to the school board
for half of
that
it's a full position.
If we really do need these 2 elementary positions, the math coordinator is history. The position, I mean, we're not talking people here, we're simply talking positions.
Can I ask him a question?
Sure.
Jim, it's 206,000,
Right.
207,000. You want to add in 111,000?
Instead of the
Instead
200
of, I get
Yeah,
that.
okay.
The 206 or 207,000 is for 2.5 positions. You want to add in 111 for one position.
1.5.
1.5.
Why 1.5 if they only want a half?
The half, well, because I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to pass down to what a quarter of a position is. And I'd like to think that there are some people on the school board that are not going to say, oh, well, geez, let's see if we can squeak an extra person out of this. If Mr. Ambrose really honestly feels that he needs 2 additional elementary teachers and the student assistant coordinator, the student assistant coordinator, I understand the position, and regretfully, it is something that we need. The math coordinator, as many people know, I've been accused of having a vendetta. It's not about that, it's about a failed program that's being eliminated.
I know it.
This is my way of getting that out of there. I think it sends a direct message, and it's a compromise.
Yes, Sandy?
Michelle, I have a question for Michelle. What is the cost, when you take this 207 roughly, when you take that and you break it down to, 5 halves, because it's 2.5 positions, what is the actual number in the budget that you would need for 1.5 positions, one being an elementary school position and the other being the half-time? If you can give me the number for that rather than the number Jim gave, I just want to know if it's correct.
It's 124,176.
Okay, 124,176.
If you look,
That being 82,784 per position.
Okay,
So I'm taking that times 1.5.
okay.
and that's the number that you'll see up on the screen on 05.
Yeah.
That's what I did, was to multiply this 82,784 times 1.5.
Yeah.
So that would be that amount.
Where is that?
Up on 06, 05, I'm sorry.
05.
You see where I have the cursor? 124,176. That's 1.5 average cost of teaching positions times 1.5.
Whereas my number is actually eliminating from, I've yet to get my roster for this year showing salaries, but last year the math coordinator position was 92,000 and change, plus the 2.5%, I came to 95,000.
I see.
Yes, Charlton.
Michelle, how much would it be just for this full-time student assistant council? Do you have an idea of that?
We don't know.
Well, if we're using...
Without the grant, you'll don't get, yeah.
Well, using the average rate for one teaching position, using the 0.5, it would be half of the 82,784.
If we get the grant for the other half. Or
If we're using this as a yardstick for budgeting a half a position.
So it would be about 82,000 if you had to pay for the whole boat?
That's what we're projecting.
We're projecting.
I don't have
I
grant
understand.
specific. That's what we use as the standard for budgeting a position, a teaching position.
I'd agree to do that 100% and drop the rest of it.
Move a question?
Okay, all in favor of the proposal to add in $111,960 for teaching positions above the 8.5? Please raise your hands. Okay, that's 4. And opposed is also 4. So that's a tie vote with, see if I got this right. Cheryl, you were on that? Is against this?
Yes.
I'm just trying to give it to, okay. So Cheryl, Charlton, Annie, and Sandy, I'm sorry. Okay, I was trying to figure out where the votes were. So that motion fails. by a tie vote. Yes.
I move we add $124,176 to fund 1.5 positions.
No, I didn't. I put it in the wrong place.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
I'll do some math.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That would be Mr. Doggett and Mr. Swayze are opposed. The motion passes by 6-2. So we've added in 124, 176. The next one, actually, before we get to the next one, I want to talk about something really great. Tammy, you brought up in a school board meeting, what about that facilities fund that Mr. Angel had brought about? Well, Michelle has done some in-depth looking through, digging through, trying to find the original warrant article. It is, as you, Jim, and you, Cheryl, discussed, that it is available for technology. And as a result, it is the opinion of Mr. Ambrose, Michelle, Peter, I'm not sure who else has weighed in yet, the school board hasn't had a chance to, and me, that it can be used for the NESDEC study for $30,000, which is currently in the school board budget proposal, $91,000 for Bakey for the direct climate control. Is that what DCC stands for? Digital climate control, which in investigation that we've been waiting for has a 5-year return on investment. It would pay for the refinishing of the gyms in the high school and in the Swayze gym floor. Right now, in the budget, there is $4,475 in the high school budget for just doing a coat of polyurethane on the 2 gym floors. And there's also $1,800 in the budget to do the same thing at Swayze. One thing that's been looked at is the possibility of redoing the entire floors in the high school, which would mean stripping them and putting down 3 coats of poly. That could be done for $34,250 and could be done out of that facilities fund. So whichever way the school board decides to go, there is money available. The good news for us is that we can just say, you know what, that NESDEC money, we don't need it. That $4,475 in the high school gym floor, we don't need it. And the $1,800 for Swayze gym, we don't need it. So we can take those out of what the school board proposal is right off the top, which gives us about $3,600, or $36,000. So I thought that was pretty cool. And thank you for bringing it up, Tammy. We've all been racing around like mad to try and see what we could and couldn't do. Yes, Cheryl?
I didn't think the 30,000 NESDEC was in the proposed budget, was it?
Well, if you see it right here in column D from the school board, this is the school board sent over, they added in $30,000 for the NESDEC.
Added, but that wasn't in, was that in the superintendent's initial proposed budget?
It wasn't in his initial one, but it was in his recommendation. Okay. Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
What does this total? Is that?
It's close to 36,000.
But the NESDEC was just 30,000.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to equal 30,000 plus 4475 for the high school floors, plus 1,800 for the Swayze floors, and that total. Ooh, why did I get an error? Plus 4475 plus 1,800. Do I have to put parentheses around when I've got 2 of them? No, there we are. 36,275.
So how much would be remaining then in the facilities revolving fund if this were to be?
It's on the sheet.
$110,812.
I can't get over on this. Here it is. It's on the sheet in column S. The
We don't have
30,000.
columns on here.
What?
There's no columns on here.
Sorry. There are up on the,
The
up on
header
the
is up
screen.
there, it says revolving fund.
And there are
it has
in
the
your
opening
motion.
balance.
297, 862 with these reductions, 110
Okay.
balance.
Mine-
If they refinished the high school floors instead of just putting the 4475 on them, did the whole thing and did Swayze with just the polyurethane, that'd be 36,050 of it. The school board has to make a decision as to how much they're going to do. So it's either going to be 110,000 or it's going to be about 140,000 that would be left in that fund. Yes.
Michelle, has the facilities director looked at what it would cost to redo the middle school floor? The middle school floor has not been able to be used because it is a danger. And so we need to transport kids from the middle school to Swayze to have all of their basketball games. That's an additional transportation cost. I'm wondering if that money were to go to the middle school floor instead of the high school, that would kind of even out with not having to transport them. They could use their own gym in their own school if those floors were
I think their gym
redone.
is only half-sized.
Yeah, I think it's a
No, no,
size
no.
issue, not
They
a
can't
safety issue.
play competitive games
If
there.
I may,
Yes.
the middle school gym, it's not the problem with the floor, it's the problem of the size. The out-of-bounds areas are too narrow for the size of middle school students. When the building was built, middle school students were actually 4¼ inches shorter than they are today. Consequently, the out of bounds between the foul line and the wall is too narrow, and it does not meet NHIAA regulations on setback. So that, some child chasing a foul ball ends up hitting a cinder block wall. That's why they go to Swayze. It's not the floor itself, it's the floor area.
Okay.
Is
There is a hazard with that floor. My husband is a coach there, and he says that you cannot use that floor because it is too dangerous. Something that they did at one point, they put some kind of wrong cleaning fluid or something on it, and it is just extremely slippery. I'm just wondering if that has been looked into. I know that has been in past budgets, it's been identified as a need. It's never been funded, though.
I don't have that information
Okay.
with me today, so I couldn't respond to that question. It's possible that it's in the prior year capital improvement plan, but as you know, that's not funded
Right.
in this budget.
But if we could take that from the revolving fund, it wouldn't be put on as a additional tax dollars for, because that would be facilities. Would that
That could
fit
be
into
a-
the facilities guidelines?
That could be a true statement, but I don't believe that that amount is included in the current budget that was proposed by the board, so it would have no impact on the budget that was presented by the board at this point.
Okay.
The only things that would have an impact on what's been presented that could be done in the facilities fund is $36,275 that we could take right off the bottom line that the school board has sent to us. So that's,
Do we need a motion for that, or does it
No.
just happen automatically?
no, well, we do. I mean, given that, one of the things that we have is NESDAQ as something to consider for funding and adding to our budget. Does anybody think that's a good idea? If you want to make a motion to do that, we can do that. Otherwise, we can just.
To add the
kind of-
NASDAQ money to our budget?
Yeah, that would be the thing. I don't think we need a motion to not add money,
No.
If anybody thinks it's a good idea, though, we're happy to. Okay, so, yes.
There's only one thing, is that with the parameters of the revolving fund, NASDAQ, some of the aspects of the NASDAQ study may not be approved by the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration as being things like a demographer's report don't necessarily fall into what is a facilities repair and upgrade account. So there may be some pushback from the Department of Revenue Administration on that one.
And that is a possibility, and it's certainly something that has been discussed. The purpose of the demographic study is to plan for and to figure out facilities, things like how much money do we put into the middle school, for instance, as Cheryl is pointing out. There's what makes sense for the future. So it's really, a facilities maintenance thing.
Just bringing that possibility up.
And I believe from the proposal that came forward, that part of that NASDAQ study was 4,000 to 6,000 for the demographic portion, and the rest of it was,
I'm not recalling the number off the top of my head.
I could find the email if you want to see, but it was the smaller portion of it. Do you want to see the
Okay.
email on it?
I never got the email explaining the NASDAQ with any sort of a breakdown on the NASDAQ study.
Let me
Is
see.
that in the follow-up questions? Maybe it's on.
Yeah, it was. It was in one of those, it was in one of
Okay.
those questions on our sheets.
Oh, okay, okay,
On all those sheets, that was in there.
okay.
Yep, that was in there.
Andy, can I ask one question too? I'm wondering, because you talked about whether or not you needed a vote on the NASDAQ amount. I'm wondering if it might not make sense to have a vote to clarify the committee's intention, because I think technically we're supposed to be looking at, and I apologize that the worksheet wasn't set up in this way, but it's really the board's budget that comes forward to the budget committee that you would be taking action on, and it would be included in the board's budget.
Okay.
So perhaps, a vote to clarify that.
So Mary, you want to make a motion on that one? Since you suggested it and brought it up, that we probably should? It's a good idea.
I'm going to mess up the wording, I'm sure.
You
wanna go
they
ahead?
have to be in the affirmative.
It has to be in the affirmative. Yeah, so you
For
have to say-
discussion purposes only, I will move to add the $30,000 for the NASDAQ to the budget.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jim.
And second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? You're in favor of adding the 30,000 to our budget proposal? If you vote for this, you want to add the 30,000. If you vote against it, you don't want to.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Okay. Okay.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Confused. Does it have to be added to the budget and then the revolving fund is used to fund it? Doesn't have to be listed
No.
somewhere?
That's what I was
No.
asking.
No.
You just take money out of the revolving fund on approval of the school board?
The revolving fund is a completely separate
Right.
process.
All right.
It doesn't need to be raised and appropriated in order to be
Right.
spent.
That was the purpose of my original question. I wasn't sure how that water flowed downhill.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, all in favor? None? All opposed? And it's unanimously opposed, so that motion is rejected. Thank you. Okay. So we have actually two things that we have to talk about. One is an assistant for Michael Turmel and for Michelle, half each. One position for $50,000. Do you want to have a motion to accept it and then discuss it, or, I'm happy to do whichever you want.
Well, that's proper procedure.
It is proper procedure, it's what I've been trying to stick to.
Good.
So can we have a motion to accept to add the $50,000 to the budget?
So moved?
And a second?
You're not adding to a budget, you don't have a budget.
Second.
We are adding it to our proposed budget.
Okay.
Okay. So discussion.
There's $50,000 salary, that's including fringes, I take it?
That's loaded.
Okay.
And they've never had this position before in the school.
It's a new position.
It's a new position, and I'm just having trouble in my own mind about why we need this person. I did read over the requirements and so forth, and where is all this stuff being done right now? How is it getting done?
Well, a lot of it in the past hasn't been done.
Correct.
Which is one of the reasons that they're working so hard. But please speak to it.
Sure.
Michelle.
So right now, the work that needs to be done for the curriculum side is being done by Mr. Trammell. So he's not getting to the he's literally doing data entry that probably someone else could assist with, so that he could be spending more time meeting with the teachers and developing curriculum that somebody else couldn't necessarily assist with. And the same thing with respect to my position. I shared with Annie the number of hours spent literally trying to find the language for this warrant article that someone else could have assisted with. But that person who could have looked this up isn't going to develop your default budget or the revenue projections or the number of things with Department of Revenue and Department of Ed that need to be completed. So it's really aligning for some support where those things are important and can't be backburnered. And there are other things that a person couldn't help with that are also important and can't be backburnered. So, some of the stuff isn't getting the attention that it needs.
Thank you.
I don't know if that helps.
Yes, it does, yes, yeah. So
Yeah, sure.
he or she is going to be shared between the two of you. Okay.
Correct.
Do you think that that assistance is needed because yourself and Mr. Trammell are new to these positions? Because our previous business administrator, I believe, was part-time? So I'm wondering if, because you're not familiar with the system and you're learning it, if you're needing more support now, and perhaps this might not be needed once you're familiar with and do the kinds of modifications that you feel would be more helpful, so you could find these things and not have to put all those hours in it.
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking. I think I will answer it with one comment and a question. And one comment is that you were paying your part-time business administrator a significant fee to do that level of work that was being done that could have been done by an administrative assistant, so probably more than twice the rate. And I guess the question would be, when you look at the type of work, would you want to continue to pay Mr. Trammell to do data entry that somebody else could assist with, where you can't have someone who can do the data entry necessarily do the work that Mr. Trammell is really here to help with in terms of curriculum development?
So was the previous curriculum coordinator doing that data entry as well?
She was.
Okay.
Yes, Charles.
This is another example of administrative support staff creep that we've all witnessed over the years, and this is just another one.
I don't think I've witnessed it. Perhaps you have.
Well, I have.
Give details on that?
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know what to say about being interrupted.
Well, you said we all have.
Listen,
Cheryl, you can comment after he finishes if you wish to. Okay?
Cheryl, if that's the way you want to do this in the future, I'll make sure that you get interrupted constantly, because you say a lot of stuff that I don't agree with, and I sit here, and so does everybody else, and listens to it, or at least listens to it. I'd appreciate the same.
All right.
If you don't like my words, talk about them afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, it's employee creep and support staff creep. The other thing that I'd want you to think about is that, no offense to you, Michelle, sitting here, but the two employees that are asking now for help are really new to the job. They've only been here a few months. I think Cheryl's observation that we had a business administrator and what's Mr. Trammell's job there?
Curriculum coordinator.
Curriculum coordinator didn't ever ask for this and seemed to be able to get their jobs done. And frankly, if they wanted it, they would have asked for it, and previous boards, both boards, would have given it to them. So there's not enough experience with these two yet as to whether this is really necessary or not. I say no, and based on past years, they did their jobs without having this administrative support, that we should not approve it.
Yes, Cheryl, you had your hand up first.
Okay. I would like to just comment that I do not want to be included in the statement that we all have observed administrative and clerical and support staff creep. I have not seen this. I think that I would much rather have our business administrator and curriculum coordinator do the kinds of jobs that they have expertise and education for, and these duties in this job description do seem fairly clerical. Only a high school diploma, maybe some secondary secretarial office training. I would agree with our business administrator that I would rather see someone being paid a lower salary do those kinds of things so that they would have time to do the kinds of things that are in their job description. So I would support this position.
Yes, Sandy.
11 years ago, when we opened the high school, they created a position for receptionist, 20 hours a week. It took a couple of years, and that position became a full-time position, and it was proven that there was a need, and it's remained so. I would like to suggest, I am against this, let's just gung-ho do this, add $50,000 to the budget. I know that the town budgets are all being created now. We're not the only taxation that occurs. We're the major taxation for our residents, but we also have the town budget to look at. And everybody knows that costs do go up and there are increases. So being fiscally responsible, I would suggest that this position be made a half-time position. And we are, Mr. Trammell has been here for years, and he has been the curriculum coordinator for the high school. So he's very familiar with what that job description is. He now has that role full-time. So clearly, and him wanting to do an excellent job, as Michelle does, they see this need. I don't disagree that there is a need for clerical support for both of them. What that really looks like, rather than creating a full-time position with benefits, that in light of us adding all of the, wish list items that we have to the budget, that we might consider $25,000, for a per diem person, and increasing it possibly next year, as there's other needs that have been put aside for this budget. Maybe this is one that can be met at a 50% level. We've done that. We've compromised for the student assistance counselor. And the budget's going to go up. It's going up. But does it need to go up with a full-time position that's never been there before, that I personally think there clearly is a need, but I do think that as adjustments are made after you aren't the new person, you've gone through a full calendar year, maybe this job description will be able to be modified as to what is actually needed. So I see pros and cons to the whole situation.
Yes.
I've seen the creeping that Dr. Swayze mentioned, in that when this building was opened, as Ms. Osterloh said, we added a receptionist. We also added a part-time second vice principal. That became a full-time second assistant principal. The receptionist became a full-time position, and while during our lifetime of 2 budget committee members, we saw an additional position added clerically to the high school central office, not including the increase to the SAU office, which is in the same building. Now, you kind of reach a point where, okay, somebody needs a little bit of clerical help. I believe that we can look within our existing structure here in this building and say, okay, we have somebody that we can, you can work for the central office for the high school for half a day. You can spend half a day doing clerical work, because Lord knows we have quite a number of people. Part of the problem is that once the position becomes full-time, if we figure out a way, and I'm not disparaging anybody, this is standard part of the Peter Principle and all of that. If we can find a way that somebody else can carry half of our load, we'll shift it. And that gives us a little bit more free time during the day. I look at this and we've been asked to wait a year for a whole bunch of answers. This is something for the next year. Can't they look and see what kind of support is actually needed? And if we have it already within this building, because all of the positions are within this building, and work from there. And it's a little smaller increase in the taxes.
Yeah.
As I thought about what I said, and as Mr. Doggett was speaking, actually the 50,000 includes the fringe benefits. So what is the actual salary for this position?
I didn't pull the detail for each of the benefits and the wages. I put the total in there. I don't have that right with me. I apologize.
Should be 2/3 of it based on history. So that's what,
On those lower tax
37,000?
brackets,
What?
lower tax brackets, so I'm guessing probably 35,000 would be the salary and $15,000 worth of benefits.
It's year-round, so if it was 36, that'd be 3,000 a month. So that would be 18,000 to approve. I know that's a later motion, but we're discussing this position.
Okay, so right now what I'm hearing is 3 different proposals. One is the one that's on the floor right now is to fund this position at $50,000. A second idea that's out here is to fund no position. And a third idea is to fund a position part-time at $18,000. So I'm hearing 3 different proposals, and I'm not sure how you want to handle it.
We have to vote on the motion that's
We
on
have
the
to
floor.
vote on the motion that's on the floor first. So we have a motion on the floor. Yes?
Well, why don't we see if we can get a consensus before we start flinging the votes around?
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Okay. Let's
not get stuck with form over
Okay.
substance.
Can we just take kind of a straw poll and see how many would, if we had a motion and we were voting on the motion that's on the floor, how many would be in favor of the 50,000? So that's 2. How many would be in favor of nothing? That's 1, 2. And how many would be in favor of 18,000? So that one would win.
Yep. I'd live with 18. I think it's a reasonable suggestion.
Whose motion was it that?
Well, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do
the
you-
original motion?
Would you be willing to modify your motion to 18,000?
I'd like to vote on it, and then if
Okay, okay.
it doesn't pass, we can make another motion.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to fund this position for $50,000. All in favor? It would be 2. It's Cheryl and Tammy. And opposed is 6. So that motion fails by 2 to 6. Sandy, do you want to make a motion?
Sure, I make a motion that we fund $18,000 for this particular position for this first year.
Okay,
I will second that,
it's
however.
already seconded.
That's all right.
Now it's discussion.
If I may, that's $18,000 in salary. It would require approximately $6,000 in, actually probably not that, not as
Keep it
much.
part-time, so there's no
Yeah.
benefits.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's part-time, so it's,
It'd be FICA.
There would still be FICA,
Yeah, but
you're gonna have workers' comp, unemployment, I mean, you'll have
Right.
some benefits.
but that's a much smaller,
I'd like to amend my motion then to $20,000.
Is that okay with you? Is the second?
why 20?
Because to include FICA and so forth.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to add $20,000 to the budget for support staff for the business administrator and the Curriculum coordinator.
May
Are
I
we
ask
ready?
one more question?
Yeah.
Is your proposal, your intent to have this be a part-time position or a contracted, like a temporary person?
No, part-time position.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Oh, do we have discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought the discussion was over. You have more to say? Yeah.
I wanted to ask Michelle, do you think that $20,000 is a reasonable amount for a person who would be part-time? And how many hours would part-time be? Would it be 20, 40 cut in half?
I don't know. Part-time I'm assuming that the committee is thinking of 20 hours a week.
How many hours
That's what you
could it
negotiate.
be
It would be 50,
without
40.
getting the full benefits? Without getting, what's part-time considered?
Yeah, I think that's
32.
30 or 30. I'm just trying to think if it was 30 or 32.
Right.
So 32 or less, you would only be paying the FICA and the workers' comp.
I believe it's 30 hours.
30,
In the
okay.
support staff contract.
Okay.
So do we know an hourly rate, how this 50,000 was?
No, because, I mean, this is in its development stages. We don't even know when we place an ad what we'll get for responses. You know, what the pool will look like for part-time as opposed to full-time, and what the market is for somebody, that's available for part-time.
Yes.
It's approximately $16.75 per hour.
Based on the numbers that are
Right,
presented.
right.
Right. So I was thinking you were asking a different question,
Yeah.
but the math would come out to be about that.
Double check the math.
Is there anything further in discussion? Are we ready to vote on that then? All in favor of adding $20,000 to the budget for a part-time support staff, please raise your hands. And opposed?
No, I.
Okay, so that was unanimous. Okay. That was unanimous. There is one more that has
there's
come
more
up.
than one more.
Yes, it's a new one. The school board doesn't have it in, but they've just gotten legal opinion that the stipends for the school board were illegally removed and that they have to be reinstated. So
Or the old
they
back
were
pay
illegally removed by vote of the school board to do that. But they need to be reinstated, and that's $7,000. So.
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Who sought that legal opinion? Do we know?
We do. Yep. The chairman of the school board was convinced of that, and I believe that Corey Mason helped do a lot of research into that. And, pardon me?
I was asked, because I was a prior chair. I did not ask for that to happen.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Good,
I won't blame you for something you didn't do.
Okay.
Well, that
So
is my
Corey,
question.
so Pete was instigated it, as I understand, and asked Corey to help him as the former chair. And Pete was convinced that that was not a legal thing, and it was very great concern to him. Yes.
Wow.
It's something that came up once before in the school district when the board voted and found out that, no, you have to take your stipend and donate it back. Because we all did it 1 year to supply I think it was the late bus for the middle school. But because it was a legislative act that created the stipend, the school board doesn't have the power to override the legislative opinion.
So we got to pay money back for last year?
I think they have to, I'm not sure, I think they have
just
to find
curious.
it in their budget right now and issue checks to the school board members who can do whatever they want with them.
Oh, man. I would, can I, go ahead.
Yeah.
Jack's got his hand
Well,
up.
can we cut it to $1?
I don't know.
No. It was established by a warrant article
Okay.
at $1,000.
Okay.
Now,
I
remember,
didn't hear
this
that.
was in 1984, I believe. So we're talking even older than me in time.
So you're gonna warrant
35 years, it's
article
still
coming.
$1,000. But then again, our state legislators got $2,000,
$7.
$200 in
Wait,
1776
They're still getting.
to be a legislator, and they're still getting $200 a year.
Well, just to kind of back up, what the Budget Committee last year proposed is that be removed along with some other things. And the idea was to put everything possible into an effort to pass the teacher's contract and the support staff contract, because we just felt that was a priority for the school district. The school board then took that proposal and put it into their budget for this year. And at this point, they're going to have to find it this year. Could they find it next year? I don't know, in the 7,000, or do we need to add 7,000 back? Your feelings?
I'd honestly let them find it. I mean, between the cushion that was mentioned in the supply line.
Motion on the floor?
There is no motion.
The money for the 1.5 person versus what they could do by my suggestion, $7,000, I think that they can easily find in this budget. It is not that tight.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion about this? Yes, for the 7,000.
I move that we add $7,000 to the budget for school board stipends as indicated by legal counsel.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of adding 7,000 to the budget? That would be 3. That's Cheryl, Tammy, and Mary. Opposed? And that's 5. That would be, fails by 3 to 5. There's one other one that we didn't take care of.
I got one too.
Oh, okay, but the gym floors, the $62.75, we need to probably make a motion that be not in the budget, since it is a part of the budget that came to us, if that's what we want.
I would move that we reduce the overall operating budget by $6,275 to reflect the reduction for the high school gym floor and for Swayze gym floor refinishing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jack? Okay. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Charlton, you voted?
I'm going to abstain. I don't know enough about that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Opposed?
Did everybody vote for it?
Yes?
No, I'll vote for it.
All right. Then that's unanimous. Okay.
I'm kind of lost on that.
That's unanimous. Okay. Charlton, you had something else you said you wanted to bring up?
Yeah. Are we still in our budget, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I make a motion that we add $1,708 for bass fishing.
You're going to start.
I'll second it for discussion purposes only.
Okay. Any discussion? Yes.
Madam Chair, while I recognize that bass fishing and fly fishing are immensely popular and can become lifelong sports, there are certain things that grandfathers should teach their grandchildren. Not necessarily educators teach. That's particular is one sport that I think should be a family concern, not a school district concern.
Is that one that you that you do in Scouts?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Don't you understand, Jim? I'm angling for a full-time, how you like the pun? Angling for a full-time coaching position?
Is there any further discussion on this motion? Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor? Please say aye. Opposed? And abstain?
Yeah, I'll abstain.
Okay, all right. All right.
Now, another question.
Yes.
When will we know the default budget amount?
In early January is when it's established by law, right?
Well, I don't feel comfortable or feel like I should be deciding a budget amount until I know what the default budget amount is. I don't think that's responsible behavior on my part.
Okay.
So I don't know what we're going to do tonight, but not knowing what that amount is.
Let me suggest one thing, which is that we are not coming up with our final budget proposal tonight. We're coming up with a proposal to send to the school board for them to act on and tell what they want and, see how they respond, possibly to renegotiate with them for a budget to present at the public hearing. After the public hearing, we come up with our final proposal. And by the time of the public hearing, we will have the default budget. We will have a lot. So,
right. Okay.
So it's not a final.
Are you sure of that? Because
I am
remember
100%
how we got
sure.
burnt last year on one of our votes that somebody said it was a final vote and it couldn't be changed?
I'm sure of that.
You're positive.
I'm positive of that.
Okay. Burnt once, not the second time.
I
Yes,
think
Jack.
that's something we discussed last year, that we work together, and I like that idea, Sit down with the school board, let's go with our cuts and adds or whatever, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
Yes, Cheryl.
I wanted to just bring up that I did some research on the pivot table. Now that I know how to use it, thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
And something that I had brought up last week in regards to online access fees. I also looked up dues and fees and books and periodicals and looked at the history. And I think that was really important to look at how these numbers have changed over the years. What is not in here, and I don't know if this is information you could get for us, Michelle, is what has actually been spent so far on these line items, these objects. Just for an example, the online access fees, and I'm looking at the pivot table tab, budget by object history.
And which tab are you, which object are you looking at?
56430. It's called online access fees. And prior to being able to use the pivot table, I was trying to go through each building and each department and see what that added up to. I had estimated that it was about 200,000. And I see from the pivot table, the FY18 adopted budget, which is what we're in currently, it was 230,522.11. Oh, you found that, Annie.
I did.
That's it. And the proposed budget for FY19, 241,228. If you look at the history of the actuals, in FY16 actual, it was 47,550.
I don't have that. Is that on that same chart?
Yeah, should be.
I'm not able to bring it up here. Apologize. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yep.
Okay, that was FY16, so that was
Yep. Actual 47,000.
2016-17, correct?
Yep. And 17, 77,000.
And actual in 17 was 77,000. The adopted budget went up to 230,000. That's what we're working under now. And it's proposed to go up to 241,000 for next year. We were hoping that with the increase in spending on online access fees, that books and periodicals would have some downturn, that there would be some, not, penny for penny, but that because we were moving in that direction. So I looked at the books and periodicals, which is 56400.
Yep.
So the adopted budget for FY16 was 331,000, but 98,000 was spent. That was the actual. The adopted for FY17, 92,000, 75,000, was actually spent. So that is going down. The adopted budget for FY18 is up to 98,000, so now it's increasing. So it went down, but the proposed budget is now to go up again to 122,000. It doesn't seem to be going the way we were expecting, that if online things, the curriculum was going more towards online, that the spending would go down in books and periodicals. I understand that you have not had time to evaluate this. But I would propose that we reduce that line item by $10,000 because of the history of the actuals and the significant increases in the current budget and the proposed budget.
Second.
Okay. We did discuss this last week, and, and I understand that, you revisited. It's certainly a concern to me, and something that I want to see looked at very much. Mr. Ambrose last week asked us to give him the time to look at it because he didn't know. You're talking about the online access fees, reducing
Right.
that one, not the books and periodicals, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
The online access.
He just wasn't sure which ones they were going to need, what the renewal periods were, what what they were obligated to do, and he just asked for the time to be able to do it, with the probability that was going to happen during the year before the next budget season. But it was kind of asking us to trust him on it.
And last
and
week I had
we-
asked for 20,000, so in reviewing this, I'm revising to 10,000.
I see. Okay. Are there any further comments? Yes.
That was a question that was asked in the November 1st series, and Mr. Ambrose answered it, saying, again, our plan is to analyze the district expenses of software, books, supplies, and materials for instructional purposes. We recognize that there is more work to do, but we need more time to process all of the information. So it's another one of these, we're going to look at it, but we couldn't get to it just yet. You're pointing out that there's a major discrepancy between what's budgeted and what's actually used. And not only that, but the trend is continuing to kind of go up. Is that the basis for you recommending just a $10,000 reduction? And what does the $10,000 represent as far as your logic?
Well,
you said
I would like
originally
to,
20 and
I would
now
like
10.
to do more, but, seeing as there's going to be some research into it, I just think it's such a significant increase, that I think that there's likely going to be some savings being able to be found in there when you analyze how much those things are actually being used and being used to the advantage of the students. What's the educational value? If you have, one teacher using a software program once a month, I would hope that there would be some guidelines where you could say, what is the value of this instructional software or online access, that there's got to be some kind of a guideline that a number of students are going to be using this, or a percentage of the students in the grade that have the online access fee for this information, this program, whatever, that would make it valuable. We have internet access, and just unlimited. I know it's not the same as what you can get through the school and what you need for research, but still, I would say students are using open source information as well. So I think that this is such a significant increase that that could be reduced by that small amount.
Yes.
I'll actually endorse Ms. Gannon's reduction. Quite honestly, I looked at this too during the week, and I said, maybe the 20,000 was too big, but it may turn out to be otherwise. If we take $10,000 out of this line item and assuming that the school board removes it from their, the actual working documents properly, if it makes somebody think twice before buying a program or continue, not making sure that by the third day of January, you don't hit the do not renew button, I'm all for it, because I believe that some of what we have in that area is stuff that nobody uses as a major part of their curriculum. They're just sort of, okay, well, it's there, and if I get to it, I get to it, but if I don't, it wasn't my money. And that often happens.
I don't think people intentionally, my personal opinion, purchase these things or ask for them to be purchased without the intention of using them. However, life gets in the way. You've got testing to be done.
Exactly.
Rigor in, meeting the standards that there's just not enough time in the day.
More politely said than the way I did, but it is the type of thing of, I could picture in any number of classrooms in this building, somebody saying, that'd be really good, and I think I can use that next May, but next May we don't get to it, and we've just spent $6,000 on a subscription that that we don't have the time to use. And it will make people think twice before going, I'm not going to get to it. I shouldn't really.
The other thing I would like to see, and I think by addressing this, is that these be monitored. That if you do get a new one and it is a good program, you have evidence that this is being used and that it's benefiting the students. But that it might have replaced one that you used before, but we just forgot to say, don't renew that one. Better things coming out. I really
quite
think
often
there needs to be more monitoring of it.
Yeah, Mary?
Can the school board charge Michelle and the administrative team with
And Michael.
assessing?
Sure.
Well, the administrative team, he's part of the administrative team.
Yeah, but, yeah.
With assessing this as a priority? Can they,
They can charge
dictate to
them
that
with
this needs
anything
to
they
be
want.
done?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole, honestly, if I may,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of things that they're throwing at Michelle and Mr. Ambrose.
Right.
And saying, these all need to get done.
I mean, one of my.
Ergo the assistant.
Well,
Thank you. Because it took a significant amount of time to find this document, which was
Yeah.
one of the things that, there's a lot of work clearly that needs to be done, and it will take some time. But there needs to be not only time allotted to do it, but at the level of, that it takes to do the analysis. And I think many of these accounts, one of the comment was made earlier about, the part-time business administrator, and, I wonder if you're looking at the results of not being able to get to some of this stuff. Because in her time and given the type of work that she was needing to do and what I'm seeing, I just wonder how much she was really able to do the business administrator level work. But clearly, there are areas that are on the docket for review, and it is just a lot of work has been put into this budget to make some adjustments in the budget. And we get a little anxiety about going much further because we don't yet know what we don't know, and that evaluation needs to be done, so would hate to be caught short.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor is to reduce line item, I'm not, Cheryl, which line item is it? I'm no longer in that screen. 56.
Is it lumped together? Is it books and periodicals? Or
No, it was
online access?
online access fees.
I don't know if that's how you would say it,
Okay, let
that
me,
line item, because it
I've
comes
got
from
it.
different
Okay, 56,430.
locations.
56,430 is the online access fees, to reduce that by $10,000. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 2. Abstentions? Okay, so opposed were Tammy Mahoney and Annie Collier, and the motion carried by 5 to 2 to 1 abstention. Okay, so at this point, what I would like to do is to open up the floor to public comment before we vote on our final budget number. We've come up with one, but I want to vote to affirm it, that we're going to send to the school board.
Don't call it our
Stop
final
using
budget
that
number.
word
No,
final.
okay. Our final budget number for tonight, our total budget number to send back to the school board for, further action. So I'd like to open it up to public comment.
What is the number?
Well, we're right now at $35,108,007.
Wait a minute, 30?
Superintendent or school boards?
$35,292,066.
Is that school boards or superintendent?
That's a superintendent.
Okay.
School board, we are $173,678 higher than the superintendent's initial recommendation.
How much?
$173,678 higher
678, okay.
Than the superintendent.
than the superintendent's initial recommendation. And the school board's recommendation, we are lower by,
184,059.
thank you.
I knew that was coming.
Thank you. Public comment.
Porter Mason. I just want to say.
Use the microphone, please.
Sorry,
Thank you so for the video.
I'm not breathing on this, I'm sick.
Okay. Talk loud.
No, I just want to say I appreciate the discussion, and I know a lot comes from years of angst and anxiety, and I just think I like seeing the numbers go up, go down, and you guys come into a compromise, and it makes it really enjoying to watch, and I appreciate it. So I just want to thank you all for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Seriously. Yeah.
Since Mr. Mason has a cold, I'm gonna wear this mitten.
Are you Sheldon?
Cam Brown, Newton resident. Just want to thank you for all of your work on the budget. The discussions, both here and at the board meetings, have seemed to progress well overall. My only concern is that we continue to fall back on old practices. And I regret having that happen again this year during our budget deliberations. I think we should start with a zero-based budget, and talk about student enrollment we anticipate, how many teachers will be needed, programs that will be needed, capital depreciation, and so forth, and build upwards. We continue to talk about reductions, cuts, and decreases, and to me, that's the wrong foot to start out on these discussions. We also discuss things like, besides this, we talk about cuts in staffing, and instead of talking about actual needs, we talk about, we phrase it as increasing class sizes instead of moving toward board-mandated class sizes. Again, it's all about the phrasing. As we move forward, we need to be careful of the language, because it just tends to trigger some animosity where it's really unnecessary. But other than that, I appreciate all of your work. Thank you.
Put my hazmat suit on.
For public comment.
Jim Baker, Newton. I basically want to reiterate what I said at the last meeting on what a tough job this has been, and I want to thank everybody for the effort and the really rigorous amount of time and thought that you put into coming up with these numbers. I also want to thank the administration for digging so deeply into the core of the budget to come up with the enormous amount of detail that they've provided both the school board and the budget committee in order for everybody to have a very transparent ability to look at these numbers and to be able to do the analysis that we've seen, because without that, as we've seen in the past, it's very difficult to know which way to go. And I think all the committees and the new superintendent and the new business manager and their leadership team have done a phenomenal job putting this all together for the community and the school. So thank you very much.
I had one committee comment to make in response to what Dr. Brown had to say is that I think you're absolutely right about the language, and I think it's important to re-emphasize that what Mr. Ambrose and his administrative team was to look at what the enrollments actually are and to build a budget from the ground up of what they need to the extent that they've been able to with the information that's available. And they totally recognize with two new elementary school principals, they totally recognize that they need to look at a whole lot of things to see what it is. They've inherited certain amounts of things and certain procedures and certain expenses and items, and they don't really know yet what they need. We're so new into new administrations that there's a lot of questions out there, and I think those have been emphasized. I think what Mr. Ambrose did with looking at staffing in particular is to look at what the enrollments are and what the actual needs are, and then that translates into fewer needed than we have now. And it's very easy to fall into the trap of talking about reducing staff. It's not that we want to reduce staff, it's that we want to have the right amount of staff for the population that we have and the education we want to deliver. So thank you, Dr. Brown, for pointing that out. You're absolutely 100% right. Thank you. Any other comments?
Can I get some clarifications?
Yes.
Just to make sure I understand. So the last year's budget was 34,937,964. Is that correct? Looking at this paper.
Pulling it up.
No, that's the superintendent.
Yes, last year's budget was $34,937,964.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And somewhere do we have the actual expenditures?
We don't because we're in the middle of the year.
Okay.
We're not even in the middle.
Yeah,
We're not even in the middle yet. We
Okay.
will have about a 6-month total, presumably by the time we get to the public hearing, close to a 6-month total, probably a 5-month total by that point. But we won't have we won't have 12 months till June 30th.
Okay, Michelle, can you project yet what's going to be for leftover, surplus, whatever word you want to use, based on?
I will have to take a look at that as part of the revenue projection.
Yeah.
I don't have a ballpark number in mind yet, but it is something that I need to take a look at.
Okay. No, I don't want something like that. I don't want you throwing something out there that you have to eat later.
Were you able to come up, I know I've asked this a bunch of times, do you know what the unspent, what is it called?
The unencumbered fund balance.
Unencumbered fund balance was from June 30th last year?
Oh, I have that, I do not have it right on top of my head. It was used as part of the tax rate setting.
Right. I assumed it has to be. I keep asking, and that's the question that just haven't gotten an answer to yet.
Because it was funds that were returned to the towns.
Right.
Right.
I'm quite sure it was about $1 million. I'm assuming it was about $1 million because that was the rate at which we were spending, but I don't have the number yet.
Between $1 million and $1 million.
And I wouldn't want to try to dig it out and give you an incorrect number, so I can look that up, though.
That'd be really great to get that number.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any other comments?
Just on that, it's very annoying that DRA keeps that a closely guarded secret. The Board of Selectmen in Newton requested to find out how much was returned from the school district, and DRA refused to tell us.
Okay.
So we're sitting there, because DRA does all the final calculations, we submit all the paperwork. When they set the tax rate, not only did they screw up this year with $183,000 worth of revenue that they didn't allow us to apply to the tax rate, but they would not tell us what the schools returned.
So we'll have to have another conversation about, perhaps with the Newton Board of Selectmen on what happened to that $183,000, whether that's in our tax.
Oh, no, the $183,000 was highway money that we received, but we received it in a chunk and it had to go into a revolving account, so it can't be used to offset taxes. And we thought we could.
Okay. Are we ready to have a, yes, did you have more comment, or are you making a motion?
I comment.
Okay, yeah.
Any comment?
Yeah?
Is that what we're in?
Yep, we're in that. We are.
I too want to thank the administration for your hard work. I know it was difficult coming in to a situation where you didn't have a lot of people to fall back on to ask the questions to. And I'd like the voters to consider that, and that we continue with the respect showing to you and helping you to be able to do your job, because that's what you're being paid for, and we appreciate you doing that. I would like to know where we go from here with our figure that we came up tonight. We did not vote on this,
We haven't
Madam
voted
Chair?
on it yet, so that's the next step.
So what is the next step is my
That's the next
question.
step.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would propose that we send to the school board our recommended, but not final, budget number of $35,108,007.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so it would be 7 in favor, no opposed, and 1 abstention from Mr. Swayze. That being done, our next thing that will happen,
Now, what's the figure?
$35,108,007. I'll be happy to send you.
007, okay.
The next thing that happens, just to kind of review what's going on in the whole budget process, is the school board meets next Wednesday, and we'll deliberate on our proposed budget and decide whether they can adopt it as is, or whether they want to have a meeting. Is it next week? No, it's in 2 weeks. Is it next week? It's next week, next week. Sorry, next week. Should they not accept our budget as is, then we are having a meeting on next Thursday, and we won't know that, so I'm going to be posting it as an agenda, just so that we're legal about having our 24-hour notice. But we'll be having a meeting on Thursday, hosting the school board here, to see if we can't come up with a jointly recommended budget, you know, unless, and that won't be necessary if the school board accepts ours. Yes,
Language linguistically,
yes.
we're not sending them to accept. We're sending them saying, this is where we are with the budget. What is your reaction? They have neither the power nor the ability to either accept or deny the budget.
They can, but they will vote yes or no on it.
Well, they will vote to endorse it or not.
Right, okay. Okay, I agree with what you said. Thank you for that correction. Yeah,
On our original budget committee calendar, it does not say what time that meeting would be at. If we're inviting the school board, can I assume that we would meet at 6?
no, that isn't necessarily the case. I think that's up to us to decide what time we're going to have it.
I penciled in 7 p.m., so because I know
Yeah.
we discussed it, will we continue with that?
The only reason that we did the 6 PMs were to accommodate the administrators when they were out here, because they start so early. Of course, Mr. Ambrose, and I don't know if Michelle would be here, but, you know, yes,
So this figure that we just voted on,
yes.
what are we calling that?
We're calling it our preliminary budget recommendation.
So this, no matter what the school board does on Wednesday, won't we need to meet again to finalize that, to begin our slideshow?
That's listed on the budget calendar.
It is, but we don't need to meet on Thursday for starting our slideshow. What we need to do is to reserve Thursday to have a joint meeting with the school board, should that be needed, and then we'll be meeting the second week in we'll be meeting in January.
So that's when we'll vote on finalizing this figure, or the
We'll be
school
working on
board
the
might
slide. No,
come
we've
back
already
with
voted on
something else?
finalizing this figure.
Okay.
That's our proposed budget. We don't come up with a final number until after the public hearing.
No, that's not what I'm talking. What we're going to put forth to the public, is this the number we are going to put forth to the public? And the school board is going to decide whether they endorse it or not, but that's not going to change what we have here, or is it?
That's not quite correct.
Okay.
Should the school board decide to endorse this number, then it will be the number that we will be taking to the public at the public hearing.
Maybe.
But we don't have to meet, so we're going to meet after the break to decide that that's the number? Or is that what we just voted on?
We just voted on that. Should the school board wish to negotiate, instead of endorsing our number, should they wish to have a negotiation, that will take place next Thursday in 1 week here. And what we need to decide is 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, but that's what we would do then. And then any number that we might both vote on out of that, and we may or may not agree at that point, but our number will be the one that we take to the public hearing.
So we're going to have a negotiation with the school board?
Possibly. That's what we set up as our initial budget process. We voted on that several weeks ago, Cheryl.
Whether they change it anyway in either direction, we would be negotiating?
No, if they endorse it, we don't have anything to negotiate.
No, that's what I said, if they change it in either direction, add money or...
Yes, then we were inviting them to negotiate,
We're going to
yes.
negotiate with them. Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Actually, the school board can't change the number.
No, they can...
However, at the state and the federal level, it's called a committee of conference. We get together and we say, okay, this is what we are, this is where you are, do you accept our changes? They may look at us and say, oh, we can understand this, 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 and this. We really feel that educationally we need to move money from this line to this line. They could end up with the same number, but in different proposals, because remember, the budget has to be presented as lines. We only come up with a number. They have to say how they're going to enact our number.
I understand that, Jim.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been here for a few years.
But I think that's for the cameras, to help the people at home understand the process. So, is there anything else? So at this point, what we have is we have a meeting possibly next Thursday and at 7 o'clock. And I will be sending out an email to everybody on Thursday telling you, yes, we have the meeting or we don't, so please reserve the time. Okay? Move to adjourn. Second? All in favor? Aye.